Roll call.
Thank you for joining. Welcome and thank you for joining us today's March 17th SBCAG board meeting. For the record, my name is Janelle Osborne and I'm the vice chair of SBCAG's board. Madam Clerk, please facilitate roll call.
Thank you, Vice Chair Osborne. For the roll call, Directors Hart.
Here.
Director Hart,
He just said here.
oh, I'm sorry, I didn't hear him. I can't hear him. Hartman, thank you. Nelson,
Here.
Lavanino,
Here.
Eurig,
Here.
Julian,
Here.
Sierra, Patino,
Here.
Perotti,
Here.
Clark,
Here.
Rouse, Chair Williams, and Vice Chair Osborne.
Here. Madam Clerk, would you please remind participants of the remote participation housekeeping before proceeding through the agenda?
Thank you, Vice Chair Osborne. Just a couple of Zoom reminders for all the panelists. Please remember to mute your mic when not speaking. If you'd like to comment, please use the raise your hand button. If you're an attendee, you'll be in listen-only mode. All attendees will remain in listen-only mode. The public are limited to 3 minutes per speaker. The public will not be able to share their video or screen. When public comment is called and for an agenda item, attendees may use the raise your hand button to express desire to provide public comment for that item, and you will be unmuted when it's your turn. Those calling on the phone can dial *9 to raise your hand. Thank you. And those conclude my Zoom reminders.
Thank you. Please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We will now have item number 3, which is public comment. Madam Clerk, is there any public comment or has there been any public comment provided in advance for this item?
Vice Chair Osborne, we received no request for public comment, and I see no attendees requesting to speak.
Thank you. Item 4 is the approval of the consent calendar. Are there any directors who would like to pull items from the consent calendar? Seeing none, we will ask for public comment or if any public comments have been provided in advance for these items.
Vice Chair Osborne, we received no request for public comment prior to the meeting and no attendees currently requesting to speak.
Thank you. Is there any board discussion? Seeing none, I'll ask for a motion and a second.
So move, Julian. Approve the consent calendar.
Second, Patino.
We've had a motion and a second, and now a roll call vote, please, for board members participating remotely as well.
Thank you. Director Hart,
Aye.
Hartman,
Aye.
Nelson,
Aye.
Lavanino,
Aye.
Eurig,
Aye.
Julian,
Aye.
Patino,
Aye.
Perotti,
Aye.
Clark,
Aye.
and Vice Chair Osborne.
Aye.
Motion passed 10-0.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, will you please read item number 5 into the record?
Item 5 is the draft 2023 overall work program and budget. 5A, review and comment on the draft fiscal year 2022-23 SBCAG budget, which will be considered for adoption at the April 21st, 2022 board meeting. 5B, conduct a public hearing to accept public comment on the draft fiscal year 2022-23 overall work program and budget.
We will not be hearing and as
Madam Chairperson, members of the board, presentation for the 2022-23 program and budget. Is as it identifies what we intend to accomplish in the upcoming year, our staff to the various tasks and work elements, and to pay for the work, both for in-house and other direct costs and consultants. Next slide. Oh, there it is. It's up. Take this opportunity to look back over the current fiscal year and work program and budget and look at some of the things we can celebrate and some of our accomplishments. This was an infographic that was prepared for when we kicked off our new year. And so I'm going to highlight a few of these in my next few slides, but I just thought this was a nice capulation of what we accomplished. Next slide. So the groundbreaking that we celebrated this past year for the starting of segment 4B on our Highway 101 project, this event unveiled the Blue Star Memorial Highway designation and ended with a bike tour of the Santa Claus Lane bike path. We had the pleasure of several board members in attendance, plus Congressman Carbajal and the chairperson of the California Transportation Commission, Hillary Norton. So I like to reflect that this was a nice memory for SBCAG, and we are also going to be celebrating ribbon cutting this upcoming year. So we'll have some similar opportunities to celebrate. So the main line of the construction has been going full steam ahead. We are celebrating that ribbon cutting on 4A this June. We hope to highlight our transit providers in the corridor and kicking off the HOV lane by allowing those buses to be our first to use that HOV lane in Carpinteria. And another thing I think we need to celebrate is that groundbreaking, or excuse me, ribbon cutting is 2 years after the groundbreaking that we started in April 2022. So that's usually a 3-year process for construction. So we're a little over 2 years. One huge accomplishment I want to identify, when we kicked off the project in April 2020, we had identified a location for a concrete on-site mixing opportunity, what we call the batch plant, to make the concrete to construct the highway along the corridor. That site had to be relocated because it was conflicting with the monarch butterflies at the time. So we had to regroup and reestablish where we were going to place this. So this batch plant was basically processed within the time frame of the construction of the project, and we were able to get it up and running by summer 2021. This required a vast amount of coordination to obtain the approvals from the Air District and the county, and it was a huge accomplishment for the project for SBCAG, Caltrans, and Granite Construction. The batch plant allows for the ability to prepare concrete on site for all the segments. So this is one of the benefits of the general contractor, general manager contractor situation we have with our Granite Construction. This facility is saving millions of dollars in costs of the concrete, increases the quality of the material that we're using because we have consistency, and minimizes the number of truck trips that would have been needed to deliver concrete to and from other sources to the project location. So this is a prime example of how the construction manager general contractor delivery method is used in delivering the project for all the segments that we're considering here. Moving on. This past year, we also adopted the RENA plan for the 2023-31 planning period. We adopted that in July. We had no appeals from any of our member jurisdictions. We also adopted the Connected 2020-50 Regional Transportation Plan and Sustainable Community Strategy in August. So this is our 20-year outlook of where we want to go with transportation in this region. And with the local agency stakeholders, we are in the process of revising the airport land use and compatibility plans for the region, and we're hoping to adopt that later this summer. Okay, moving on. We also want to celebrate a couple of our local Measure A projects. This was in the city of Goleta, their pedestrian hybrid beacon on Cal Real, and the city of Solvang also had some road improvements on Alisal Road. And those were finished and constructed. And last but not least, we also had a very successful year with our Easy Bike program and had many events throughout the county and celebrated trying e-bikes as a mode of transportation. And then we also like to have fun at SBCAG. We were able to celebrate our I always stumble on this one, foot race frenzy in Solvang. And we did that in September. And then we also had our Christmas celebration with a gingerbread decorating contest included in that. So now getting back to the purpose of what this presentation is all about is to present you the overall work program and budget. And we use this document in three very important ways. The first is to get our federal and state resources. We have to do this document to be eligible for our planning dollars that come from our federal government. And we also use it as a communication tool to you and to the citizens of the Santa Barbara region to identify what we intend to accomplish over the next year. And then we use it as a management tool to track along the year of if we're maintaining our budgets, if we're getting things done on time, and moving things forward as we planned. So included in the overall work program is our priorities. And first and foremost is our partnerships with our local partners and incorporating their communication and through our committee structure and through the board, and making sure that their needs are being met in everything that we do. Included in the overall work program, we have a table front and center of all the priorities by division. And I'm not going to read these, but I'm going to highlight a few of those in the next few slides, unless we aggressively pursue them and apply for those. And so you could see the list of discretionary grants that we are anticipating in the upcoming year to support our overall work program and budget. So getting down to a little more detail is our general fund. This is the fund that's basically pays for our staff and any direct cost and any consultant services that we have. The majority of our revenue for our general fund comes from state and federal resources, over half or just about half of that. And then our local sales tax measure does support our staff resources in supporting those projects and moving those forward. And then we also have some miscellaneous funds of interest and other fund balances that we incorporate into our budget to accomplish what we do. This is our expenses. Out of the $6 million in our general fund, about $4 million of that is staff and pays for the 20 individuals that are employed by SBCAG. Over $1 million is professional services and direct costs. So these are our consultants, our admin and HR and IT support that we pay for, and other specific things, and administrative expenses of about $800,000. Moving on in a little more detail about the staff. So again, it's about $4 million is to pay for our salaries and benefits. This includes 20 positions. We have combined we had 2 part-time positions that we combined into a full-time position under the Traffic Solutions Division. So we will have only 3 positions in Traffic Solutions, whereas before we had 4 with 2 part-time employees, and that's due to turnover. So those 2 part-time employees have now are no longer employed by the agency. We are proposing a COLA based on the CPI. This is based on the resolution that you adopted last year, that we would look at the CPI as a cost of living, as a basis for the cost of living. So we took the average of the last year, and it was higher than we've anticipated plus in the previous years. So we're proposing a 4.3 based on that CPI average for the past year. So comparing it to last year's budget for staff, we had estimated 3.9 for staff. We only spent 3.6 because of the delay of the salary survey that the board approved, and the fact that only portions of that, based on the board's recommendations, only portions of that survey was implemented. So the actuals were a little less than we anticipated last year. So this year, with that 4.3%, we're proposing a $4.4 million, a little over $4 million budget for salaries. Okay. When I presented this to the executive committee, they asked for additional information about the comparison of salaries and budgets, and projecting that out over the next few years to see if this is sustainable. So where we are is we're at the 2022-23 budget, and so we're showing that our income for the agency is going up according to the cost of living, basically. And we are receiving additional revenues from our state and federal partners, as well as through our specifically through our project programming and monitoring fund through the state transportation improvement program, as well as our local sales tax measure. The revenues have gone up, so there's increase in our 1% admin that corresponds with the increased sales that or receipts that we receive. Okay, and this is just a comparison of our overall budget and our salaries. So when you look at our overall budget and going up to 66 million, the 4 million is such a small percentage, you can barely see it on this chart. It's that dark green line at the very bottom that's almost with the line of the x-axis of this chart. So in comparison with our overall budget, our salaries are a very small part of it. Okay, moving on to the next slide. This is our, and it's kind of hard to see on the screen there with the blue. So we'll note to self, don't use blue and green. Yeah, maybe that will help. It looks now blurry to me, but anyway, this is our org chart. And so the only change to the org chart from the current year to the next year is the consolidation of the staff that position and under traffic solutions that I mentioned earlier. Everything else is remaining the same. We're not proposing any new staff at this time. One of the things that we're going to be discussing over the next year is the broadband and where the broadband is going in the future. So that may change things in our budget and our staffing if the board wants to go in that direction, but it's not reflected here right now. The SAFE revenues are fairly stable. This is the dollar that's collected for every vehicle that's registered in Santa Barbara County. So this is our Surface Authority for Freeway Emergencies. So this maintains and operates our call box program, as well as our Freeway Service Patrol program that we have on the 101 corridor during peak traffic times to get vehicles off the road to try to reduce the traffic congestion due to vehicle accidents. And so we're proposing there's $777,000 in revenue that we're proposing to use in the upcoming fiscal year. And the expenses are the same. So we basically only use the revenue that we need. And so the staff support for the SAFE program is $150,000. The professional services are the callbacks maintenance contract that we have to maintain the existing callbacks that we have, which is only about 40 or 50, somewhere in that range of call boxes in those remote areas where we still need them. The Freeway Service Patrol contract for the tow truck company that we have on contract, and other professional services. We do use a portion of the SAFE funds to support our traffic solutions department, which is eligible under the SAFE program to reduce traffic on our freeways and highways. Next slide. Clean Air Express. I just want to point out, this is our revenues for what we're proposing for our revenues in the upcoming year. And in the past, this majority of the funding used to come from our Measure A program. So this graph is showing that most of our funding is coming from state and federal resources, and that's due to the success of our staff to aggressively pursue other funding to support our Clean Air Express program. So that is a success. And I do also want to point out that our fare revenue is down due to COVID and ridership, excuse me. And so we are adjusting our budgets accordingly. This is our expenses for the Clean Air Express. And again, the majority of the expenses for Clean Air Express is the professional services, the operations contract that we have with American Star, 1.3 million, and all the leases and maintenance and the storage that we have and the parking agreements we have with the city of Lompoc and the city of Santa Maria are all included in this budget. What also is included is the asset transfer. We're getting buses from Antelope Valley. We're using their used buses because they're converting their fleet to all electric. So we're getting those buses slowly but surely, but we should have them all by the end of this upcoming fiscal year. And so that will be removed from our budgets, but we're basically getting, I think, 17 buses for $700,000. And this is the last remaining payment of that deal that we have with them. So we are, and it's also paying for the painting of those buses to have the Clean Air Express logo and identity on those buses. Our Measure A program, which is under the hat of our local transportation authority. I know this is hard to read, but it basically is identifying the split that was approved by the voters, the 43% going to North County, the 43% plus a little bit going to, it's equal to North and South. And then the off the top for the Measure A program and the budgets that we have identified for each North and South County allocations. So those are included in this budget. The one thing I do want to point out here is that our revenues for Measure A is 51 million. Our projected revenues, this is much higher than we've ever experienced. We're usually in the 40s, low 40s. So this 51 million is higher than we've ever experienced. And that's based on the receipts that we received this past year and our projections from our HDL, our financing company that projects our revenues for Measure A. This helps immensely because this budget also includes the debt payment for the TIFIA loan, which is about 900,000 for the year. So the increase in revenues is offsetting the debt payment. So the impacts to the local jurisdictions on their pass-through money that we give them through Measure A is minimal, if anything at all. So they are basically being kept whole because of this increased projection of revenues. So that's good news, good timing of that. Okay, out of that, those revenues, we're proposing 56 million going to our capital program. And I just want to show that this 56 million includes all the other matching dollars that we get into SBCAG, or excuse me, Santa Barbara region for the projects that are in our budget. So while the revenues for SBCAG, we only get a small portion of the 51 million that's coming in from the sales tax revenue. We basically multiply that by those discretionary grants that we get in. We're using this Measure A money to leverage state and federal dollars in the amount of 43% of the $56 million that we have in our budget for these capital projects. And most of them are for the parallel projects on the 101, as well as transit, and the Goleta train station is also included in this budget. Okay, so this is a little more detail of that pie chart you just saw, the 56 million. The staff support is identified based to implement the local projects or the Measure A projects included in this program, but 55 million, almost 56 of the 56.7 million is going directly to projects. And this is a long list of what we intend to spend in the next year on all these projects. Okay. So in summary, what I've tried to do since I've been at SBCAG is use our formula fundings to basically fund our staff and make sure that we are strong, small, and mighty in getting things done. We use our discretionary dollars to implement projects, those one-time spending opportunities, and we go for those competitive grants as aggressively as we can to make those things happen. As you can see, our sales tax continues to grow even through our COVID situation. We weathered that storm very, very well. We are predicting a fund balance at the end of this fiscal year at 1.5 million. This is an increase of our goal, which is 1.2 million. So we are very healthy as far as our fund balance. We hope to present this to the board for final adoption in April of 21st. This is a little earlier than normal because our deadline to Caltrans is mid-May, which made it difficult for us to use the May meeting as the adoption date because of that deadline. So we did accelerate it a bit. We did present it to the executive committee at their meeting last week, and we will hopefully be able to place this on the agenda for your approval in April. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Thank you for that presentation. Any questions of staff?
Vice Chair, Director Perotti has a question.
Director Perotti?
Thank you, Chair, so much. And thank you, Ms. Kern, for this great presentation. I really appreciate how it's laid out. Thank you. And I recognize our priorities are, the 101, broadband, zero emissions, but under Measure A, and this is a question that came up at our last council meeting, and I thought this might be the appropriate time to ask it. And if not, then we can discuss it at another time. But the 101 overcrossing on the western end of Goleta, where is that at in the queue of funding availability? I just thought this might be the right time to ask that question.
I don't, it's that would be included in our strategic plan that we approved a couple of years ago. And I don't think it's in the near future. So it's obviously not in this overall work program. There is some work that would need to be done to make that an eligible project. And it's not only would need Measure A dollars, it would need other dollars to implement, state and federal resources possibly to implement that. So I can't answer your question specifically because I don't have the strategic plan in front of me, but it's not in the next 5 years, if I recall correctly.
Okay,
So-
that
so-
helps me.
But we have talked to your staff about it, and we have been keeping it on the radar, and we continue to ask them where they are with that and where they want to be. So it's on our discussion agenda, but it hasn't moved further than that.
Okay, thank you so much for that, Ms.
Mhm.
Kern.
Director Patino?
Yes, call boxes.
Yes.
I don't mean to put you on the spot, but where are these call boxes? Are they mostly going in Kuyama?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Do we have any on 101?
We removed all the ones on
Okay.
101 except for, I think, a couple in the middle of our county where the self-service was lacking. I
Okay.
think we all noticed that if we're using digital services for our music opportunities. But we can get you a map of where the remaining call boxes are.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Any questions out of Santa Barbara?
Vice Chair Osborne, Director Yurig.
Director Yurg, please, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. Thank you for that good report. I did want to ask there was one of the slides that you were talking about, the executive board had asked regarding the revenues and expenditures going forward. And it was hard to tell looking on Zoom, the revenues we're keeping up, or were they slightly ahead of the expenditures on that graph that you had?
That was specifically for the salaries and benefits, and we've
Right.
always been below our budgeted amount for salaries.
So just below the amount.
It's basically the only portion we budget for salaries. And so we took that out. So it was a clear, if we gave you a graph of our overall budget, you wouldn't see the salaries because it's
Okay.
such a
All right.
small number compared to our overall budget.
Okay,
So
thank you very much.
so we can bring up that slide again, so I can show you the difference. Okay, yeah, bring that one up. That's the salaries compared to the budget for salaries. And then the next slide gives you the difference between our revenue for the entire agency and the salaries are just, it's so small incrementally compared to our overall budget. It doesn't show up on the graph. So that's why we gave you
Okay.
the first one.
Yeah, that was what I wanted to just clear up. Thank you.
Mhm.
Director Nelson?
Thank you, Chair Osborne. I had a couple questions on looking at the Clean Air Express and SAFE. There's some numbers on your slides for staff support.
Mhm.
So I think it's slide 32, $151,000. What does that exactly connect to? Because I looked at the budget itself and there's no expenditures for salaries coming from Safe Express or from the Clean Air Express, and trying to understand what makes up staff support?
Staff support is SBCAG staff. So basically, what's challenging is there's different funds. So this fund is paying for SBCAG staff. So we charge the SAFE fund and the Clean Air Express fund for the staff that works on those projects directly.
Okay, because then if you go to the actual budget itself on page 3, or sorry, page attachment C, under expenditures for SAFE and Clean Air Express, it has salaries and benefits is 0.
Because they don't have staff. So it is confusing. So basically the 6 million that I showed for staff includes revenue from SAFE and Clean Air Express. But I wanted to show it accurately in those budgets that it's staff, but they don't have staff for those.
Okay, so
funds.
make sure I understand.
Yes.
So SAFE and Clean Air Express, I guess the general fund charges.
Correct.
Okay, want to
Got
make
it.
sure I close the loop on
Yes.
that.
Yes.
And then getting back to the CPI issue,
Mhm.
I've got a little bit of concern there. 4.3 is a higher percentage than I think we're seeing other places. Was there also raises this last year from the staff as well?
No, we implemented the salary survey,
Mhm.
which you approved at your November meeting, I think it was. So it was this, did it go into effect in November or yes? So the only salaries that were increased based on that recommendation were 3
They're
positions.
below market
Yeah.
positions.
Which we had more that were below
Right.
market, but those were extravagantly below market.
Right?
Yeah.
So then the 2137, the resolution that the board passed last year on CPI, was there any cap on that for us as the board? Did we? So
No, it just said to use the previous year's
CPI.
average CPI, which we did.
okay, and then but that still is a proposed number. So
Yes.
this board
Yes.
through the budget process, or
Yes.
where? Okay,
Yes, this is the time.
all right. And I guess my hesitation with that, we just at the county have finished wrapping up our negotiations with many of our labor groups, and 4.3 is a pretty high number. I understand that inflation is going up and the cost of living, and that's a concern for all of our employees. I just all of SBCAG employees, county employees, city employees are all kind of, it's the same job market, and I think we just need to be careful as we increase salaries in those spaces, that it does have impacts on our jurisdictions as well. And so I'm on the fence on this is that for this year, but I'm also concerned in years in the future, if we come up with a CPI number much higher than this going into next year, as we are seeing inflation, that could cause problems for some of us as we look at this holistically, as we all kind of compete for employees. So just want to put that out there for a thought for my colleagues as we deliberate on these numbers. Thank you.
If there's no more questions of staff, seeing none, we will ask if there's any public comment, or if any public comment was provided in advance for this item, Madam Clerk.
Vice Chair Osborne, no public comment has been requested prior to the meeting or right now in attendees.
Is there any further board discussion? Seeing none, this is for review and comment only, therefore no action is required. So thank you, staff, for your hard work on this and for an excellent presentation. All right, item number 6. Madam Clerk, will you please read item 6 into the record?
Yes. Item 6, Broadband Strategic Plan Project Update. Receive a presentation from the Broadband Consortium Pacific Coast on the progress and status of SBCAG's Broadband Strategic Plan Project.
And we will have staff presentation by Michael Becko.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you, Vice Chair Osborne and directors. I'm Mike Becker, your Director of Planning, and today with me is the consultant team or the core project team for the Broadband Strategic Plan Project. With us are Dr. Bill Simmons of the Broadband Consortium of Pacific Coast, the project lead. He's with me here in Santa Barbara. Maria Kelly, also with the Broadband Consortium, and she's the project coordinator, and she's up in Santa Maria with you. Vicki Connor of the Econ Alliance is also up in Santa Maria with you. And finally, Lauren Bianchi-Clemen, who is lending her expertise to the outreach process, is here in Santa Barbara. And this is going to be a tag team effort. Today is Today's an exciting day because it is the first time, despite working with Bill for the last 6 months or so, it's the first time I actually saw him in person. So excited about that. So we have about a 10 to 15 minute long presentation for you. It's purely an information item. We're not asking or not looking for any action. We want to provide an overview of the project, including where we've been and where we're going. Okay, next slide, Lauren. Okay, so here you could see what we're discussing today. I'm starting with the introduction, and I'll go into the project timeline in a second. Maria Kelly up in Santa Maria will discuss the data collection. It'll come back to me. I'll talk a little bit about the speed testing. Maria and Vicki Connor will talk about, and also Lauren will talk about the outreach efforts. And finally, Bill Simmons will wrap it up and talk about the next steps and where we're going. And following our presentation, we're happy to take any questions that you might have. Next slide, Lauren. So, in thinking about this project and being a planner, nothing in the planning world moves fast except for this project. Following the pre-activities of building an alliance and securing funding for this project, the board approved a contract with the Broadband Consortium during its December meeting. The project kicked off in early January, and the schedule shows us having the final deliverable in the October timeframe. The project has been divided into several phases, which kind of follow our presentation today. First is the convene and outreach, which goes through May. The data collection aspect, which goes through September. The development of analyses goes through September. And then in the final months, it's taking what's learned and turning it into the deliverables in the plan to go forward. And as you can see, we can't walk and chew gum at the same time. So with the next slide, I'll turn it over to Maria up in Santa Maria.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you, board. So we're super excited about what we're doing here. We're doing our own data collection, and it's a very unique approach that we're taking. We have the survey link is live, and we'll be doing some outreach in that starting next week. And we're collecting our own data around speed testing. And this is a big issue because one of the debates at the state and federal level is accuracy, because a lot of the speed testing we have is self-reported by telecom or updated by other ways of methodology. And we actually have a license to collect our own data. So we'll be doing the analysis with the data that we're collecting directly for Santa Barbara. So it's really exciting. The GIS mapping, it's also a unique approach in that we're going to be developing an entire mapping system that will be open access to the public sector, meaning all planning departments, mostly held by SBCAG, but other planning departments will be able to access that. And what we've done is we've hired an expert, a local Santa Barbara County expert on developing that map for us. And we'll be incorporating as much as we can on unserved, underserved, where our anchor institutions are, and we'll be able to do a cross analysis with our speed testing and our needs assessment survey. Needs assessment survey is also live, and that's what it looks like on your SBCAG webpage. The team's done a great job at developing an outreach page. In addition, we'll be doing direct outreach to all the jurisdictions, cities, and county with gap analysis and broadband readiness. We're in the process of doing our one-on-one meetings with city staff, either the city manager or someone within the planning department or IT. We're still waiting on 3 cities, Santa Barbara, Carpinteria, and Santa Maria. Everyone else we've either met with or we have it on the books. So we're still doing that outreach. And then we'll be able to provide back a survey so that the city staff can provide us so we'll have a better understanding where the gaps are in regards to city broadband readiness. Data collection, we're going to be talking about ISP telecom providers twice in this presentation. And why we're talking about it under data collection is it's really important for us to understand what services our ISPs and telecoms are providing in the area, including any support around digital inclusion and closing the digital divide. So that can be affordability programs or other outreach programs that they're participating in. And we'll be providing within the strategy and analysis of what those programs are and where we might need to be accessing them, or where we might need to enhance them, or where we need to find funding if telecom's not providing that. So I will pass it back to you, Mike.
Yeah, thank you, Maria. And I just want to touch on the speed testing or the value of the speed testing a little bit. Lauren has done an excellent job of rallying just about every PIO in the region. And within the next week or so, you're going to start seeing a flurry of activity and press releases and emails, and hopefully each and every one of you help us get the word out about taking the speed test. So the value of the speed test is we're asking people to take it from home and to let us know where they live or as much information that they feel comfortable providing to where they live so that we can create a map of the quality of broadband service in the region or the quality of internet service. So just using the images on the screen, these are from outside the region. But you could see in the picture on the left, a red circle. And in that red circle, there's a handful of black dots, which just indicated poor or no internet service. And they raised a red flag, which in turn led to a more focused outreach effort of getting the right people involved to encourage the people in that broader area to participate in the survey. And the end result then is the map on the right, and that shows the broader extent of the problem in this area. You could see an entire corridor that is either unserved or underserved with internet service. And in this example, at least what we were told, is it led to an actual project to run fiber down the corridor and to improve it. So that's what we're doing in Santa Barbara County, and that's why it's going to be important that we get the help to get people to take the speed test and the survey. So Lauren's going to real quick take us to the SBCAG.org just to highlight. So we have a broadband page. So this is SBCAG.org, and you can see we added it right on the front page of SBCAG. So you could see right in the middle, take the test, take the survey, or go to the broadband specific page. And then we have some information about the project on there, some project contacts. At the bottom, we have a handful of resources if people want to dig a little bit deeper into broadband. But you can see right there in the middle, we have the speed test. All you got to do is click on that. You don't have to click on it, Lauren. Yeah, click on that. Would take you straight to the speed test, or you have the survey, and then on the right there, you have the results map. It's pretty sparse at this point. You could definitely find where SBCAG's office is because that's where we worked out the bugs from. As we'll use this results map similar to what I showed on the previous slide. We'll look to see what the connectivity looks like throughout the region, and if we start to notice some areas that are getting the black dots, or if there's areas where we know that people live but we're not getting any dots, that's also a flag. So that'll lead to more focused outreach. That's why we're doing an initial push that will go through the end of May for the speed testing and the survey, and then after that, it'll become more focused of trying to fill in the gaps to see where we are. So I think it's back to Maria for the outreach.
Thanks, Mike. Thanks, Lauren. Go back to the slides. All right, there we go. One of the things that we've talked about is how does this all fit together when we're tackling our outreach, and we have different terms for different participants. And so I created this new round chart instead of a pyramid. So we call everybody that's participating basically a project contributor, including the ad hoc committee, the stakeholders, technical advisory committee. And why we've broken it out like this is because there's going to be a level of intensity and outreach depending on who we're connecting with. The stakeholder group is a group of people that are very specific to project outcomes or have critical input into future potential development projects or digital inclusion projects. So it's a different higher level of intensity. And basically anybody that's within that interested party group is everybody in the county. That's where we lump everybody in and all the other organizations and kind of take that wider sweep. And what we've done to identify the different groups is we've developed an incredibly robust database of names, contact information lists, school districts, pretty much everybody that we can think of that will be an end product that will be owned by SBCAG, but we'll be using it for data collection and then contact information and direct outreach. So we'll be able to target those areas when we see the black dots or the no dots or the low service dots. We're going to be able to ask a little bit more information. The Econ Alliance has graciously agreed to take the lead on the direct in-person outreach. And so in April and May, we'll be actually holding forums in person throughout the county. The messaging will be focused on data collection, the speed test, and the survey. Needs assessment survey, but we also really want to keep front of mind is the reason why we're doing this project. This project is to connect everyone. It's about digital inclusion. It's about digital equity. It's about making it a priority and making sure that everyone has access to the internet. Under Broadband for All and some of the federal funding guidelines that are coming out, that's the end goal. And so we want to make sure that that messaging is clear throughout. So that's going to be a part of our outreach messaging. It's very, very important. And again, meeting with the ISP and telecom providers around that is significant. And that's, I'll pass it back to Bill.
Thank you, Maria. And you stole my thunder in a couple of places, but I'm going to elaborate on the
Sorry.
I'm going to elaborate on the system and the analysis. We talked about data collection, and there's a reason why we do data collection. It's to establish a foundation of knowledge. And so really understanding how the data is going to be used, what data we have. We're looking to build a system, a systemic approach to the data that we're collecting. So let me talk about that system for a little bit. It's not, we've used the term GIS quite liberally, and yes, that is about mapping, and GIS is going to be involved. But everything from an email to an address to speed test data, all of that is going to be in the databases, if you will, of the data that we're collecting and the foundation for which we're building this database. And so we do have a GIS expert that we're bringing on. Let me describe that system. In the first, or here and now, in the next few weeks, the next month or two, we're looking to put together a system of needs, where the hot areas are, if you will. And so data sources that we're talking about are national, USDA, NTIA. They're also statewide, CPUC. They're also local, UCSB, and the Community Foundation. But then we have our speed test data too. And so all of these are all looking for the same thing, and we're looking for a great deal of granularity as well as cooperation in terms of where these hotspots are and where these priorities are. And that ends up becoming low-hanging fruit in terms of some of the issues and the opportunities that we're going to be putting in the ultimate strategy. So our focus here and now is really collecting this data that I've just mentioned, as well as also starting to focus on fiber maps and all the other data for the back end of the strategy. But the front end, where we're collecting the areas of need, are going to be really setting up the bones, if you will, of what we're of the analysis to follow. So I talked a bit about the areas of need. In addition to the outreach that we're going in a general sense to the picture that Maria put together of various elements of the team, we're also going to be then connecting to fiber providers. We've been reaching out to the telecoms. They have certain data in terms of their particular fiber maps, and we're looking at, some of them are going to be willing to share, some of them are going to be willing to talk about it and help us and work with us and maintain a dialogue. There's going to be other public fiber sources. All of that is going to be data that we're compiling as well. And as the overlays start coming into picture, where the assets exist, as well as where the areas of need exist, we're going to be wanting to compare and contrast that. And so that's the analysis that'll follow, looking to start that in the spring and into the summer months. So that's what we have to look forward to in terms of analysis. Priority areas and assets. This is a good time then to be talking about the engagement of the team overall. Who's working where and when? And this is a resource discussion. And so funding is required for resources. What's happened in the last week or two is a number of funding sources have come online. Technical assistance grants are really targeted towards municipalities. They're coming online. I confirmed this week that they'll be arriving for applications in the early May timeframe. We have had some success locally in this particular program related to the Chumash. It's amazing. The spreadsheet was remarkably simple. It's a matter of a couple of tabs filling out the data, and within 60, 90 days, notification of receipt and award. And so the same model is being adapted for municipality purposes. In the case of the Chumash, those particular offerings were about $150,000 a year. In terms of the funds that have been assigned for municipalities, we're looking at $500,000 for the next year or two, based on while the funding lasts. So that is unique to municipalities, and it's going to require municipalities to really not only take the data, but then engage in this regional conversation and be part of this discussion. And going back to the data that we're collecting, it's going to be, you know, municipal, regional, and available to everybody that's participating. The other funding source that's been announced, and this is part of the first tranche of the governor's budget, is the last mile funding. And the number that's been given from CPUC to the County of Santa Barbara is 6,627 unserved residences. Big number. And we're looking at where that number came from and how to find them and where they, in what communities do they exist. And we're going to, that once again, the clue to doing all of that is all of this data collection that we're doing, as well as the speed tests. But based on that number, the initial push is for $15,870,746.44. That's been allocated to the County of Santa Barbara for this 6,627. Now, on the surface, we know that it's going to be a lot more than that to be able to take care of this problem. But that's just the portion that's been assigned out of this first tranche of funding. And so as we continue to take the data, refine the data, collect more data, I want to emphasize that this is really just a starting point. We have what we have for this year under this agreement and what we're going to be doing over the 6 to 9 months. What we really want to do is create this capability and capacity for the municipalities, for SBCAG, to take what we've started and continue to refine it year after year after year as the funds continue to roll for the next 3 to 5 years. And so I want to emphasize what's going to really work for us is starting something that's significant that everybody's engaged on. With the technical assistance grants, we've got communities that are engaged. With these last mile grants, we've got a region that's engaged, and we've got a direction as well as tools that are going to be necessary to provide internet for all. Going to the last slide. I tell you, what a project, what a time. It's just exciting. These are all the folks involved. We've got a couple of more names that we're in the process of adding. We're gonna, our GIS expert is gonna have his name added to it as we finalize the agreement with him, as well as we have a telecom networking expert that we're talking with and working through in terms of bringing on in the weeks to come, in which will be helping us develop network design and when we look at last mile and middle mile networks, this expert's been there, done that, and provide us a lot of confidence and insight in the nuances about those kinds of things. So, as well as funding for that as well. That's all I have at this point. Happy to take questions from everybody and anybody, and maybe go to the team first and make sure that I haven't forgotten anything. So, I got a thumbs up from from Mike.
You're good on my end, Bill. Thanks.
All right. Questions?
Thank you so much to the entire team for that presentation. Is there any questions of staff?
There are some in Santa Barbara, Madam Chair.
All right. Is that Ms. Hartman that would like to speak first?
All right. I always am interested in the money and the two that it's starting to roll. It sounds like the 15+ million is formula, so that's coming no matter what. The technical assistance grants to the municipalities, if I understand correctly, the form is rather simple if it's modeled on what the tribe did. But is there, are those for last mile, and could you just elaborate a little bit on what we should be expecting? Because that's not much time from now.
Yeah, it's not. And the conversations are going to be somewhat complex. Each municipality will probably want to figure out what is their role and responsibility as it relates to broadband within their community? You know, are they going to want to be very much hands-on? We have some communities that have their own broadband interests. And then others will want to be, let's just let industry do it all. And we'll just have somebody perhaps plug into the regional conversation, but not do a lot of it ourselves. And so that conversation is going to be very, very important. I think we'll probably, as a task force, as a consortium, as a resource to you, want to put option A, option B, option C for municipalities to consider and put the dollars in those terms. Municipal owned fiber, I'm going to go on a limb and say, I think cities should look at it very seriously. You know, there are certain portions of the community that from a business standpoint don't pencil out. And we've got to get fiber into those communities. We've got to, you know, provide a way for telecoms to do it without telecoms making the investment when there is no return on investment. And so I think there is a role for the cities to play, and I think it's a conversation that we're going to have. And then to your question, the technical assistance grants will provide the resources to get those organizations, those cities into that spot. But it may vary based on where the cities want to go and what they want to do.
And if I just might add, I think for most cities, a lot of this is new as it is for SBCAG. And so I think there is value, or maybe that's my question, is there value to having a more coordinated approach to what the cities are seeking? Does that enhance our regional stature as we go forward and try to get more money when the next tranche is released?
Everything I'm seeing, the answer to your question is yes. We've told CPUC about what Santa Barbara County is doing, and we're really getting a lot of positive feedback. We have eyes on us at this point, and I think the more we are connected, the more we are seeking best practices and developing best practices, the more collaboration that is occurring amongst municipalities. It is attracting attention. And so I think that the more coordinated we can become, the better.
Then if I might just follow up, would there be some advantage in getting staff people from the cities working together on the applications for these so that we can provide whatever knowledge, expertise we have in this group to mainstream it to the cities, but to try to keep our arms around it so that it is as integrated and coordinated and regional as we can possibly make it?
Absolutely, absolutely. A working group, however that would take place, I think there'd be a lot of value in doing that. Going to the 15,870,000, you've built a coalition already, you know, which has made this county unique. The worst thing that's going to happen, what I fear for other counties that the consortia are part of, is that you'll have one or two jurisdictions that'll go their own way and try to tap into a major portion of the money that's been allocated to the county to the exclusion of others. And so having everybody at the table agreeing that we're going to do this together, that 6,600 belongs to everybody. It's a regional problem. Keeping that coalition together is very, very important. And it's going to serve us well as we go through these transformational times.
So I just want to underscore, that's a very important point.
Thank you.
Chair Osborne, this is Director Hart in Santa Barbara. I had a question for staff. Is there a conscious strategy to do outreach to economically disadvantaged and underserved communities?
Yeah, so this afternoon at 2 p.m. we have a PIO briefing, a countywide PIO briefing that includes a number of, I call it the brain trust of PIOs that all have their networks and so forth to specifically around a public campaign that we're launching for the broadband survey and speed test. But to keep in mind here, there's a lot of, as Bill Simmons mentioned, there's a lot of data collection that is happening that's not solely dependent upon the broadband needs assessment and speed test that is already being generated behind the scenes of information that we already know from the state and from the local experts about the situational awareness for broadband in Santa Barbara County. So we are not doing like paid media advertising or a broad campaign that is that extensive. We are using the Brain Trust to get into the communities to fulfill the promises of the MOU that we have with the regions, and utilize earned media and that organic outreach process. And so we'll be talking through that today with the PIOs and kind of soliciting some things that they need. So we have like a media toolkit and all the things that we need to get out the message.
I think it would help define and advantage the grant applications if there was a conscious strategy to do outreach to the disadvantaged communities. I understand the system that you described, but I know public health has learned a lot through the pandemic about using trusted messengers, and I know the census did a lot of work. So I know you're aware of all these things, but I do think if it were a specific identified component, in the future grant applications that showed that we had done grassroots outreach to disadvantaged communities. I know that's something that's very important at the state level, and it would distinguish us from other communities that are doing a more traditional planning process, and it probably would serve us really well. I know that other, like ATP applications has been a defining distinction between successful applications and others, and it's hard to do it after the fact, and make it look like, it was consultative rather than informative. And I don't know how it fits into this exactly, but I just want to underscore that and make that
I
point.
think just the overlay of the GIS, I don't know if you want to talk about the disadvantaged communities.
Yeah, I absolutely do. The models that you talk about with the COVID census, I mean, the trusted agents and bridge builders are integral. In the community foundation south of us, we really want broadband to be the third leg, the third opportunity, the third chapter of that network that's been built for those purposes. I want to emphasize, though, this money is the first of what we're hearing is at least 3 tranches. This money is for connections, and it'll be followed by the literacy piece, the inclusion piece, followed by the literacy piece. And so we've got to get the connections into those communities and keep the conversation going with those stakeholders through this whole process, because additional funds are going to be coming for those specific purposes. Once again, the more novel we can be to how we do this using the previous models, I think we'll be able to attract a lot of those funds.
Thank you.
Can I chime in really quick there on that too, Bill, as well? I'd like to respond. One of the ways we know that we can reach that particular audience is through our school districts and our school systems, and find out who was mostly disconnected during the pandemic. And that is a great guide to understanding where those gaps are and who really couldn't connect. We've already had a couple conversations with school district members and even with the city of Buellton when they're motivated for broadband deployment because they're lacking capacity, and during COVID they saw a high need and students need to connect. So when we're looking, it's not just the disadvantages, it's the disconnected, which can come in a lot of ways, but we will be using the school districts as a pipeline to understand what those needs are as the first step. And then when we see those gaps, we'll figure out where that next outreach is.
And the speed test also is quantifiable and accountable, and it will account us to where communities have responded and participated, and we'll be able to measure that. And it's not a short-term strategy, it's a long-term strategy. So we still have this first phase and this initial phase, and it's very broad for this particular component. But then as Mike Becker showed in the speed test, there will be some more nuanced targeted outreach that would follow. And this is designed to be a 5-month data collection. But in order to make it tangible for the initial launch countywide, we need to do a broad brush first. And we need to get the data, the quantifiable data that we need on those maps, and then look at the targeted outreach to follow. And that's all documented and will be recorded in the strategic plan.
Director Urick.
Thank you. I guess I got my thunder stolen a little bit by both Director Hart and Maria there, because I just wanted to mention the school districts as being an issue. I know that we had not only in Buellton, but in Solvang and San Ynez Elementary, and or college school because of the demographics that we have, and just trying to find broadband availability and accessibility for our Spanish speakers. I think it's a huge disadvantage for all of them, and not just in our community, but up in, the Santa Maria Valley as well, and Los Alamos Valley. So that would be another school district I think would want to be brought to the table because of the workers that are in those particular areas that may not even have accessibility for it at all. So anyway, that was my comment. I just hope that the school districts are brought into that part of the group. Thank you.
I would like just to respond to that too, is included in that PIOs is the county education office. And so we have been informed that, the county superintendent of schools, Susan Salcido, does meet regularly with all the superintendents. And we have a stakeholder list of all the different schools and their principals, but nothing beats that overarching organization, the county superintendent of schools. And so their PIO, their director of communication, will be participating in the meeting this afternoon. And so the coordination is happening and the collaboration there.
What's important to me is the 6,627 number that CPUC has. That's the delta between what we have in census block data versus what telecoms report. The school districts know a big portion of this already. They've been fighting this fire through the pandemic, and it was hard actually to get in touch with them because they were reacting day after day after day to hotspots and whatever they could be doing to connect these people. And so in terms of the first cut at this number, I think it's going to come from the school districts. They know where these problem areas exist, and to the extent that they can provide it to us, we can't commit to 6,627 today. It's going to take a lot of time and energy to collect that data. But the school districts probably can give us the first third, the first half, maybe even 2/3 of what that number is based on what they know. And that's a great place to start.
Director Patino.
Yes, in response to this, I know in the city of Santa Maria, we've worked very close with the school districts during the pandemic because a lot of the kids could not connect in order to do their homeworks. And so we have worked, as I said, very close with them. They have the information. I submitted their names for the stakeholder committee. I think I had elevated them to the ad hoc committee, but anyway, on the stakeholder committee. And so those people that we felt were very important in the city of Santa Maria, because as I said, we've been working closely with them, know all that information. They have it. We've discussed it several times. And that was part of my enthusiasm on this whole committee, is to get this moving forward, because we see in Santa Maria the need, and we know where the need is already. So that'll be very interesting when that stakeholder group gets together. And I said, they have the information. Thank you.
Any other questions?
I had a comment. This is Harrison. In Guadalupe, we found out that the school district had broadband connectivity, which we didn't know about. So I think what happens is that this group getting together to find out where the resources are, including Southern Pacific, which has broadband running through there. So you'd mentioned this 2 p.m. Meeting this with the PIOs. Where's this going to be?
It's via Zoom.
Zoom, okay. We don't have a PIO officer in Guadalupe. We have a contract person. So I would assume we could just connect with you all and get to that point.
Absolutely.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Director Nelson.
Yes, thank you, Chair Osborne. I have some kind of a technical question about the speed tests. So, the speeds can be different based on what device you're using, right? So you've got you got wireless devices, you got your connected Ethernet devices, you got your cellular devices. Is all that data good? Or are you taking all the above, or what are you guys looking for?
We're preferring and are outlining that we would like people to take the speed test either on a laptop or a wired in, either a laptop, it could be wireless, whatever's going to measure their internet provider. So preferably not on a cell phone, and at work or at home. Those are the tests that we're looking for. So when you're at work or at home, going ahead and logging in on your laptop or your PC. without other devices running at the same time. So making sure it's just,
A
you're
clean-
not
a
trying to
clean
game
test,
and
yeah.
watch Netflix and then check your speed, but check your speed just at baseline. So that will be part of our communication.
Okay,
Yes.
so I think that's good for everybody to know that that's part of the
Right.
the mix. Okay, thank you.
The needs assessment you could take on your cell phone from anywhere, but
Right.
the speed test best at home or at work.
Thank you.
Director Urick.
Just to piggyback on the schools, the library system is also another spot where a number of the people that don't have accessibility go. So I would think that either them and or some of the nonprofits, especially for us, we have in our valley, the San Ynez Valley, people helping people. They're part of San Ynez Valley and Los Alamos Valley, taking care of a lot of those residents that are underserved. And then I was just, final comment on the Spanish. Are any of these documents that you are showing on the website available in Spanish so that that is available for Spanish speakers?
The speed test, when you log into the speed test, it automatically there's a little bar in the left-hand corner. You can translate from English to Spanish, Spanish to English. So it's already translated. And we're waiting for the final translation on the needs assessment survey, and that should be completed. It was supposed to be completed today. And then we'll put that link up. One of the reasons why we haven't publicized it widely yet is because we've been waiting for the translations.
Great, thank you very much.
And yeah, and then all the outreach materials that will be going out is all in English and Spanish and translated professionally. And then also I do want to mention too, we do have a metric, a goal, like success is 1,000 responses. And so on this particular need assessment is what we're looking at. It's everyone's dream, so, to get more than that, participation, but our success will be defined. We set a goal of up to 1,000 responses is what will be the quantifiable goal.
Thank you. Would someone be able to just put in the chat the actual website again, link or anything, so that we can be making announcements in our council sessions and any other places that we are going to speak publicly about this? Thank you.
I would be happy to. It will be going in Margie Kern's Friday update next week, most likely when we do the public launch. So this is a little bit early for the public launch of the needs assessment and survey. And so you'll be getting all the materials that you need to share, and you'll be included on the media release as well.
Thank you.
All right, seeing no additional questions.
This is Director Hartman. Sorry, Madam Chair.
Sure.
I know this is an informational item, but I wonder if we could give direction to staff to coordinate with the cities on the May technical assistance grant applications to see if there is interest in. And I believe we heard that a coordinated approach might make our grants, all of them, more competitive.
I got a thumbs up from Margie. So I believe that is something I know that the team came and presented to the city of Lompoc last night, and they're scheduling to try and present to every city as quickly as possible. And that information will also be provided. And one of the things we did ask was that our staff coordinate with this team to make the application for those TAG grants as a way to make sure that we're approaching this in a unified manner. So I completely agree and support that request. All right, were there any public comments or comments provided in advance, Madam Clerk?
Vice Chair Osborne, we received no requests for public comment and no comments received prior to the meeting.
All right, is there any board discussion further than what we've already had? Well, I just want to say thank you first to SBCAG for considering taking this on and doing so, to the SBCAG Board of Directors for voting this forward, and for Bill and Econ Alliance and their team for stepping up and partnering. This has been something that has been in stops and starts over the past 10 to 12 years, and to finally see it having energy and funding and really potentially coming together, and hearing that CPUC already has us on the radar is very exciting to someone who's myself been working on this for so long. So thank you all for your support of this, and I hope that it benefits all of our communities and all of our residents across the county. All right, this is a presentation, and so it only requires that and no action further than this. And we will move on to item 7, which is 1-minute reports. Do we have any reports to give? Director Prodi.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll just be very brief, but I want to make sure that we all are thankful to, well, especially the city of Goleta, is so thankful to Congressman Carbajal. He was able to secure, and the President Biden signed into law, $3 million for our community center, which has been closed. Certain rooms, the auditorium and other rooms that were very well used have been closed for several years because of seismic repair and ADA. So we will be able to do those upgrades. And I just want to thank Congressman Carbajal for all his work on that. And I also just want to say quickly, our 20-year anniversary, Ms. Kern was there. It was an incredible event. Kelly Hoover and our staff and the Goleta Historical Society really over the top with the amount of work they put into that. It was really well received. I don't know officially, but I heard we had over 800 guests that day. So it was a huge success. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Director Rouse.
Thank you. So my report is that the Vision Zero US 101 State Street Undercrossing project received final design approval by our Historic Landmarks Commission on March 2nd. The project reallocates space to the US 101 State Street Undercrossing to improve safety and appropriately rebalance space for vehicles, pedestrians, and cyclists. This project provides a critical active transportation connection between the city's downtown and the waterfront neighborhoods and is primarily funded by an active transportation program grant. Construction is anticipated to begin after Labor Day this year.
Thank you.
That's my report.
Thank you. Anything from Santa Barbara?
This is Director Hartman. I'd like to report that we've begun neighborhood outreach one-on-one on the Refugio right-of-way trail restoration. Refugio intersects with 246 at the Santa Ynez Valley High School, and we're hoping to work, we are working with Bucket Brigade and with County Public Works and the community, and hoping to get from 246 to baseline trails on both sides. In areas like ours, well, we really don't want sidewalks, but we've had a lot of encroachments on the right-of-way, and we need to reclaim the right-of-way so that people can walk and bike and ride, horses even. So this is the first in a larger set of projects to reestablish a network of trails.
Director Julian.
Okay, thank you. On the same note regarding the federal support, we also received 1.7 million for the expansion of Leroy Park. We received CDBG money in the past for the upgrade of that park, and that will be completed by May of this year. But the additional 1.7 will allow us to build an additional 2,000 square foot building adjacent to the building that's now upgraded, plus complete an amphitheater and a couple more picnic areas. So that'll happen within the next several years. But thanks to Representative Carbajal and Feinstein for that support. So, and you all will be invited to our opening of the Leroy Park in May or June of this year.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Any other 1-minute reports? Seeing none, we'll move on to item 8, Executive Director's Report.
Yes. Madam Chairperson, members of the board, I'd like to report that we received 10 applications for our Measure A South Coast Bike and Ped program. The 10 applications are worth $2.9 million, and we have 2.16 available. So there'll be some tough decisions on that process moving forward. In the Safe Route Schools category, we received 7 applications with amounting to 2.4 million with only 2.19 available. So again, we'll have some tough decisions. Both of those recommendations are going through our committee process and will be presented to the South Coast Subregional and to the full board at their May meetings. This past month, we held our first, or my first anyway, joint meeting with the Southern California Association of Governments. It was a well-attended meeting, so I want to thank all the board members that did attend. We discussed broadband, equity, housing, and zero-emission vehicles, amongst other issues. So I think that was a good first step in making sure that we're coordinating on a regional basis. So my last report is SBCAG typically sees maybe 1 or 2 retirements, every 3 years or so. We now have 2 in 1 month. I announced last month that Scott Spalding is retiring, and today I want to announce that Brian Breslin is also retiring at the end of the month. He's our current longest standing employee. He started at SBCAG over 33 years ago, back in 1998. And following several years, he worked at Vandenberg Air Force Base. His specialty is demographics, and much of his work was related to that. Throughout his tenure, Brian prepared countless demographic reports, provided support to all staff and the SBCAG partner agencies and regional stakeholders in deciphering and interpreting the regional demographic data. He also completed 5 updates of the regional growth forecast and played a key role in 5 of the regional housing needs assessment cycles, which I'm surprised hasn't driven him to retirement earlier than today or this month. Outside of his demographic expertise, Brian managed the Northern Santa Barbara County Coastal Trail Project, which continues to be a regional resource, and his contributions to SBCAG will long outlast his tenure. We appreciate his service and wish him the best in his retirement. So with that, that's my report. Thank you.
Thank you for that. All right, item 9 is the Caltrans report.
All right, good morning, Madam Chair, members of the board. Scott Eads here, Deputy Director for Transportation Planning and Local Assistance in District 5. A few things to report today. First is, this is a bit of old news, but I think it's important to share in case you haven't heard. Governor Newsom announced the appointment of the new Secretary of Transportation for the state, and that is our former director, Tokes Omashakin. So that is now official. And formerly, Director Owashakin was over Caltrans since 2019. Now we have an acting person in that role, Stephen Keck. He was a prior Deputy of Finance, and we're waiting to see who the permanent replacement will be. Also wanted to announce another Clean California related item. The local grants have been announced. So previously we talked about state highway grants. Now there's a separate program that's related to local grants. There was $296 million statewide that were identified and allocated. And there were 5 awarded within District 5, and there were 2 within Santa Barbara County. So the first is the City of Santa Maria, Battles Road Green Corridor Project. It will renovate and provide improvements that include landscaping, lighting, and artwork. The grant amount was $2.5 million on a total project cost of $2.8 million. And then the second was the Standing Inez Chumash Tribe outdoor space upgrades that includes educational learning center remodel and beautification elements that will benefit the local community and the tribe. The grant amount on that was $303,800, and the same for the total project cost. And then last thing I wanted to highlight is that Caltrans is hosting a stakeholder meeting on the 2021 Interregional Transportation Strategic Plan, otherwise known as the ITSP. There's a virtual meeting that will be held on March 22nd at 3:35 p.m. And the content will focus on the South Coast Interregional Strategic Corridor, which is focused on 101 parallel rail line through Santa Barbara. And it will include information about the state rail plan that's being updated, and the state bicycle and pedestrian plan, which is also being updated, and the interregional plan addendum, which is focusing specifically on this corridor. And it's all part of that. The specific corridor is part of the South Coast Interregional Strategic Corridor that I already mentioned. That concludes my report. Happy to take any questions.
Director Patino.
Yes. I know that we were really excited to get that bridge done when Mayor Lavanino was here across from Santa Maria to San Luis County. But that right lane, when you come off the off ramp, that right lane goes straight. A lot of times people don't know that. We have had so many accidents, and I don't know, are you keeping track of the accidents? A lot of them are fender benders too, so you probably don't do that. But in years past, we always had someone from the CHP at our meetings to give reports. But when I turn on the radio, it's like every week there. It's really bad. And are we looking to do anything with that with San Luis County? Because we had to work with San Luis County on the bridge. Question.
Director Patino, through the chair. Yeah, to answer that, we do monitor for accidents and keep track of collisions. And we have a monitoring system. If it triggers the need to look at it further, we will. So it sounds like this is the type of location where that would be triggering, and that we would have our safety engineers out there doing field investigations to see if there are tangible improvements that can be made. Just for clarification purposes, because I will follow up with our staff, is it the northbound direction that you're speaking of?
Yes.
Or the southbound?
Yes,
Northbound direction?
the northbound, yeah.
Okay.
And there was something like about 2 or 3 days ago, there was an accident on the bridge. And then I think it was yesterday, I don't know what it was, but they were saying, I don't know if it was a homeless encampment there. I know Caltrans is supposed to come in and clean up the homeless encampment under the bridge. And I was told about a week ago, it'd be 2 weeks. But do you know if that's going to be done? We've got we've got a program in Santa Maria, I think that's working really well, but it's sort of disjointed because Caltrans, I'm not saying Caltrans isn't working with us, but they're always a couple of weeks later instead of doing it when we do it. And so I don't know what the status is on that right now.
If I could respond to that too as well, Madam Chair. So Caltrans has well, I shouldn't say a whole group, a couple of people that are focused specifically on encampments. There's a prioritization process that we use to identify where the highest priority locations are. And then we definitely want to coordinate with local law enforcement and local jurisdictions, and where we can coordinate those efforts. So the kind of thing that you're describing, we would like to avoid. We certainly would like to coordinate to the best degree we can. I know we have noticing requirements that we do, I believe it's 72 hours. So there's procedural things that need to play out on our end. We work with CHP and local law enforcement and others. And certainly if there's ways that we can coordinate to, address the greatest needs, and also, try to diminish the impact on those that are being displaced, we certainly want to do that.
I think there's a coordination going on as far as discussing it, but I'm not sure there's a good coordination effort going on as far as implementing what we need to do. And that concerns me, because if you move people out of one place, they're just going to go someplace else. And so I took a tour, and that under the bridge is terrible. It's terrible. We have kids walking to school from the west side of town to the east side of town. And I've brought this to the attention of Caltrans before. These kids are afraid to walk to school, and that should not be. And that's a great concern of mine. Thirdly, we had an application into Caltrans to get some cameras up on 166. And we were told that we had to refile our application. And this has been months ago, like over 6 months ago. And I did call Mr. Gubbins. It's been 3 weeks now, and we still haven't heard back from Caltrans.
Okay, I'll check into that. Thanks for bringing that to my attention.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Go ahead. Somebody else on?
No.
Okay.
Director.
This is Emerson joining from the city of Guadalupe, and I had recent meetings with the housing developer DJ Farms there at the intersection of 166 and 1. And one of the big issues we have right now is the crossing between Obispo Street, which goes east and west. No, it's north and south across Highway 166. And the owner of the property at DJ Farms is mentioning that the holdup with our lighting system, the signalization there, is with Caltrans. And the other issue is involved, and we've talked about this before, with Santa Maria Valley, or the actual Southern Pacific Railroad, and the signalization at that point. And just like Mayor Patino mentioned, that there may be coordination somewhere, but we don't know where it's at. We get knocks on our doors at the community level saying, what are you doing with Obispo Street? What are you doing with the signalization? What are you doing with the cross traffic that goes across from to the Pasadena development, which is quite a few accidents. So perhaps you can direct me via email or whatever to who do we connect with to make sure that everybody's on the same page. We enjoy being at the crossroads of 166 and 1, and Santa Maria Valley Railroad is another issue, which not your problem, but we need some clarification in terms of what the status is of those intersections, signalization, because we're getting hammered by community residents wanting to know what's going on.
All right. Through the chair again, thank you for bringing that to my attention. I know there's a lot going on there with many different efforts, development and railroad and others. So I will follow up with our staff and follow up with you directly on that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Eads, for that report and for listening to our concerns. Item number 10, meeting reports. Director Hart, do you have anything to report for LoSAN?
LoSAN is working with the Orange County Transportation Authority on revising the operating services agreement between the two agencies, and those conversations are ongoing, and we'll see how those negotiations continue.
Thank you. Director Julian Calvans?
Yeah, real quick. We met March 10th, and a couple of big, not so much a big ticket items, but there was an approved 3-year employment agreement with Georgina Dandeco, the executive director. That was passed. And also there's about 549 vehicles, Caltrans vehicles in the state of California. San Luis Obispo has 22. Santa Barbara County has 49. Ventura County has 94. Of that, of the 97, of all those units, of the 646 units, 549 are for ag and 97 are for general businesses. Another item we discussed was that Caltrans has taken out several loans in the past years for a total of $3.5 million principal. And last year, there was $375,000 paid just on interest. So the board is looking at paying it all off so that we can get out from under, or the Caltrans can get out from under the huge principal amount. So that's it.
Thank you. All right. Item number 11 is no report from the Communications Committee other than meeting minutes. And so that concludes our business for today, and we will adjourn to the next board meeting on Thursday, April 21st, 2022, beginning at 10 a.m. Thank you all.